Go ahead.
When I joined the Navy, one of my friends tried to get us to try out for the Navy choir, and I go, I'm not going to try out for that. And he said, come on. So I did. And I made it in the choir, and he didn't. So for the first year I was in the service, I sang in the Navy choir. And it's kind of funny because the only singing I'd ever done before that was when my sister and me and my mother would travel, we'd sing songs. And that's it. Merry Christmas to everybody.
Well,
It was in the front of the car, right underneath the
You had to
radiator.
make the spark, right?
And you had to make a spark. You had to turn this handle. And it was real hard to turn. And then when you would turn it real fast over the top, it would make a spark and start the motor.
Was it pretty reliable? Did it usually
No.
start every time? Oh, really? And so how many times would you usually have to crank it?
Well, most of the time, like if it was my uncle, he'd just walk out there, go right off. But if one of the kids was trying to do it, but I never did get big enough before.
Then you'd flood it.
Yeah.
You could flood that kind too.
Yep.
you never got big enough to where you could
Yeah.
actually
Well,
start it.
they
Is that
actually
one?
put starters in cars before I got big enough to. And it used to be a little button up on the dashboard. You used to have to push.
So you were cranking the whole engine, you just weren't cranking something
Yeah.
to get electricity. You were
Yeah.
cranking
The whole engine to make it kick over. Yeah.
And
Right.
my mom was, when she was a teenager, was driving the car for some reason, and she got so frustrated because she couldn't get it to start. And
The push button thing.
she had to call my dad, and he came and he got it started immediately. But in that car, they had put the starter under the gas pedal. You just had to hold it
okay.
down.
You had to hold the
I
gas
think I
pedal
remember.
down.
I do think I remember seeing that. Was our station wagon like that?
Heavens, no.
Oh.
This was 40 years before that.
How do you push the starter button if it's underneath the gas pedal and you have to push the gas pedal down?
The hen turkey showed up, and our old Tom that's always around here that's got the hurt wing.
Yeah.
All of a sudden there was a brand new Tom turkey there.
Uh-oh.
And I came around the corner of the house, and they had been fighting coming across the deck. And so I stepped in between them, in between these two turkeys fighting. And then I kept that new Tom turkey away from that hen for about 2 hours, hoping he'd go somewhere else. And
Chase him away.
but anyway, I just chased him away and kept him from coming back where the hen was, so the other Tom, our old Tom with the broken wing, was having fun with her.
But he couldn't keep it up.
Yeah. Yeah, them turkeys, they're really, they really like each other. And then that Tom, he came around no matter what. It was so funny.
Got between them one time and tell him, you don't need to show me. Tell him what happened.
Well, when I stepped in between them, the
And
male
Pat-
turkey flew right at me.
And Pat got mounted.
Yeah. So,
So he flew at you?
yeah.
Oh
Did-
yeah, and pecked his leg and everything.
Oh, really? He was upset about it?
Oh boy, yeah. He thought I was the villain, all right.
This wasn't Thanksgiving time, was it?
Yeah,
This
really.
was just yesterday.
Day before yesterday.
So did were the turkeys fighting or were they going at it?
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
they were
boy,
fighting.
he been crashing into the windows and everything. Yeah, you
He
couldn't
was
even.
actually gone, and he got home. I wanted to call him or take pictures, but I didn't have anything, and I didn't want him to come in when they were in the middle of fighting. But when he came home, I told him about it, and he went looking for them. And then for 2 hours, he was out there trying to, let our poor Tom have his way with the woman.
Now, why did you care who got the woman? What, you some kind of turkey pimp?
Yeah, just because our old guy didn't stand a chance. He has a hurt wing anyway, and then he had to fight that new young.
Was the other one bigger?
Yes.
Was he?
Well,
I thought
maybe
they were
not
about
much
the
bigger,
same,
But he seemed stronger for sure.
Oh, definitely. He was kicking the snot out of the turkey we like.
Oh,
I
poor
told Pat, I
Tom.
don't care if we don't feed him.
Yeah.
I don't know where the other Tom went, but
So he never came back?
we haven't seen
No,
him
we
today.
haven't seen him
The
for a
new
couple of
Tom
days now.
and the hen were here today.
And I could see a cloud of dust coming towards me. And that's all I could see. I couldn't see any horses or anything, just a big cloud of dust. And then as they got a little closer, I could see that it was the horses coming, and a bunch of them, about 10 or 15 of them, broke off from the herd and came right towards me in my part of the canyon that I was supposed to guard. So I thought, okay, I can do this. So I started yelling, riding my horse back and forth. Nothing happened. I had a gun, so I pulled it out and shot it in the air a couple of times. Nothing happened. They just came, they charging up past me like I wasn't even there. But as they came by, there was a little mare that had a little colt that she was kind of hanging back from the other horses a little bit because the colt was struggling to keep up with them all. And I thought, this is it. I just rode up by the side of her and just put my loop down over her neck and had her, you know, on the end of my rope. Or did she have me? I can't remember. Okay, here's what happened. The minute I dropped that rope on that horse, she ran to the end of the rope. My horse stopped, and when she got to the end of the rope, she knocked both of us over onto the ground. She pulled us both right over. And then she turned around and come running right at me. And I thought, oh no, you know what, I was trying to get up off the ground.
He thought, oh
just
no.
before she got to me, like as close as Ramir to the fire, that was the end of the rope. The rope had curled around some stuff and that down on the ground, and she fell over right in front of me. And as she did, I jumped on her head and covered her eyes, and she just laid there breathing hard, and I'm laying there holding her eyes, thinking, what am I going to do now? I mean, now what? And I knew as long as I kept my hands on her eyes that she probably wouldn't do anything, but I was so, the whole experience of falling off the horse and everything, I was still trying to get my wits about me, and I finally thought, I know what I can do. I'll just slip down so that I'm holding the rope underneath, and then I'll let her stand up, and I'll be holding the rope right there by her, and I'll be all right, you know.
Yeah, that sounds simple enough, right?
So,
Do you want to stay here, Pat?
I let go of her eyes, you know, and all of a sudden she jumps up on her feet, and when she does, she
Here, trade me places. Why do you sit by Elise? I don't think it's bad right there. Right by Elise. Just pull up. Of course, Kyle was getting in there. No,
But anyway,
Margaret, you come back over.
when I let her go so that she could get up, well, I was holding on the rope and she started rearing up in the air, and it'd take me right off my feet. I was holding on to the rope, kind of around the rope on her neck,
How
holding
fun.
the other part of the rope with my hand. And she yanked me so hard that for a month after that, I couldn't raise my arms any higher than about that.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
they were so sore, so bad, you couldn't even believe it.
Oh.
And she was yanking me, and she did that about 4 or 5 times, just yanked me off my feet and everything. And then when she yanked
had a
me
Pat
this one
yo-yo.
time, she fell over backwards, and I fell on top of her again and
Oh my
covered her eyes.
gosh.
So then I'm laying there, got her eyes covered again. She's not doing nothing, just breathing, and I'm laying there. And all of a sudden I kind of couldn't see very good, and I could tell the blood was running down from my forehead, where one of the times when our heads met, when we went up in the air. And so she had cut my forehead, and it was
bleeding into my eyes.
And then she put her hoofs over your eyes.
Yeah. And so then I thought, well, where is everybody? How comes nobody's came or nothing's going on? And I didn't know what to do, and I finally thought, well, the only way I'm gonna get out of this alive is I'm gonna have to shoot her. I mean, because I didn't dare let her go again because she came after me both times. So I reached down for my gun and it was gone. In other words, all of the fios were falling off the horse and everything else, and it was gone. So that was out.
And the horse had the gun.
Yes, the horse had the gun. But anyway, I just laid there, and I was kind of crying a little bit, and I didn't know what to do. And finally, a couple of guys come riding up by where I was, and they came up, and we put another rope on her, and I was able to get up, and they held her between two horses and had her. And but that didn't turn out to be the dream I thought. It turned out to be a real nightmare because I really did. And for especially that month afterwards, when I still couldn't even raise my arms much higher than that,
You try to
I
rip
kept
your
thinking,
muscles.
it wasn't worth it to try to catch a wild horse.
But you did keep her for a while, right? Didn't you
Yeah,
take
I
her
kept
home?
her for about a month. But then
Till his arms started to feel better.
But I couldn't even get in the corral with her. I had her in the corral, and the colt was so fun. We could pet it, we could do everything with it. And I had a young boy then, and he'd go out and walk around that little colt and everything and not have any trouble at all. But the minute that anybody tried to get in the corral with that mare, she'd come after you. And so finally, after about a month, I said, that's it. So we just loaded her in the truck and took her back out in the wild and took the colt and her out there and turned her loose.
With the colt.
Yep, with the colt. So,
I'm glad you didn't keep the colt.
but anyway, so that's saying sometimes your wildest dreams are the dreams that you think will be the very best as you grow up can turn out to be a real nightmare.
The worst.
So.
Yeah, this guy has got story after. Oh, now I get what you were talking about. When I was watching you guys, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but oh, that's a good shot.
Closer and closer, and it gets.
You can smile.
So, Mom, where are you at? What are you? No, what are you doing?
Like Grandma says, she's like, you can smile.
Should you two be acting your age? Oh.
Hey, I'm here too.
Oh.
Let us know when you're gonna fall in so we step off. I was doing just fine. Harper would be
Yep.
running along here. Even though you were supposed to be weaker, you still beat him.
Now I can.
That's what you love
if I
about
do
wisdom.
that, Damon, help me do this.
2, 3.
Of my wife, I've lost about 30 pounds, you know, just because I have to feed myself and don't do a very good job. And so I ended up trying it on, and to my amazement, even the pants fit. The belt, boy, you can see it doesn't come out the but it's still a great honor. You know, I'd like to be able to present the Eagle Award to you. The Eagle. Isn't the eagle just the most
beautiful?
It's just it's the best thing that we have. It's a proud symbol of our nation. Not only is it a proud symbol, I have to look at my notes because I don't want to miss anything. Not only is it a proud symbol, but it stands for truth, honor, and bravery. As you accept this simple award, you yourself will pledge to honor our country, home, and your family. You will stand for what is right, and above all, to feel the honor that comes with righteous living. We are so proud to give to you the Eagle, the highest award given to any young men. This is the Eagle Award itself. It says, the Boy Scouts of America is proud to award the rank of Eagle Scout to Damon Brian Pitts, Troop 1031, Salt Lake City, Utah. We recognize in recognition of successful completion of all requirements for Scouting's highest rank. And then it's signed by the appropriate people.
So let me see. 3, 4, or 5. Look this way, Aaron. Everyone looking at me.
Put on shows on stages, and you could go and be in the audience, you know, and he'd call people up out of the audience and hypnotize them and stuff like this. And I goes, oh, that's a bunch of baloney, you know what I mean? And so what was really funny was me and my one boyfriend went to it, you know, because he would talk me into going with him but I went with him, but I didn't. I just thought the whole thing was a big show, you know. So we're telling these girls we're going out with at the time, we're telling them about how crazy this hypnotism stuff is, you know. And they're saying, hey, we want to go. We really want to go. So, of course, this boy, he wanted to go anyway. So he said, come on, let's take him. So we took him to the show, too. Yeah. And this was about a week later. He stayed for about a month at one of the theaters. Yeah. Would put it on a program every night. And so this girl I'm dating at the time, I take her in, and she's the shyest girl. You think maybe Chloe's a little on the shy side. She was twice that shy. And so we go in,
What if he just
and
blockages?
he's doing his act, you know, and he's saying, okay, everybody close your eyes and like count to 10 and stuff, and everybody think of something positive, you know. And then he said, now if you feel like it, get up and come up on the stage. All of a sudden this girl that I'm with gets up and walks up on the stage.
You tried to grab her? What are you doing? Stop.
And so, and the rest of us three are sitting there, you know, and we're thinking, well, wonder what's going on. Yeah. And then, I mean, he had different people like play the piano and stuff that had never played the piano. And,
that's
I mean,
crazy. That blows my mind.
He had them do all kinds of crazy things. And he gets to this girl that I'm dating, and I'm thinking, what's he gonna have her do? You know? I mean, you know,
this super shy girl.
And she's so shy and everything, and he starts talking to her for a minute, you know, and he says, oh, he said, I really like you, you know. He said, I feel like you're really under deep. And everybody's kind of, you know, and he says, why don't you go out and get some popcorn and start eating it? So she leaves the stage, has no money, goes out there and tries to get popcorn. But the thing is, his act is going on, and she comes back in and goes up on the stage and says, I couldn't get any popcorn because I didn't have any money. I mean, it is so funny for us guys, you know, that knew her.
Hypnosis is scary.
Knowing that she had no
And
money.
then
It's very real.
he
Like,
tells her to do a tap dance, and she'd never taken tap dance lessons. And she has on these little sandals, you know, and she gets out there and does this crazy little dance, like tap dancing.
oh, that's crazy.
And and he tells her about what else did he tell her to do? Sing a song, I think, or something.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow,
I
I'm a
can't
shy
really
person.
remember all the things. And then he told her, "Well, who brought you here?" And she says, "Oh, a boy I'm dating," you know. And he says, "Oh, well, that's nice because you'll really like him."
Oh no.
And
no.
And that was it. And then he said to the people on the stage,
I was like,
okay,
yeah.
go back and sit in your seats.
Oh,
And then
no.
he'd say, now you're awake and now you're fine. And,
Yeah.
and I said to her, are you awake? And she goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, you've been part of the show. And she said, no, I haven't. I've been sitting right here.
What?
And I
That's
said,
crazy.
no, you haven't. And no matter what we said to her, we couldn't make her believe
Oh
that
my
she had got
gosh.
up there on the stage and did all this stuff.
That's insane.
Did she like you a lot, Grandpa?
Oh, it was really funny. That was about the second time I dated her, you know. But her girlfriend and my friend, they actually ended up getting married later. But she was her best girlfriend, you know.
Best maid.
And so they kept dating all the time. So every time they'd go on a date, they'd always want me to
Bring you
take her, you know, because of what
Yeah.
we heard in that thing.
That's funny.
But,
Yeah, hypnosis is creepy because it is so real.
Oh,
Like, it's so
and,
real.
But the thing
The
is,
things you could
I
do.
believed in it after that.
Yeah.
And so
You wouldn't have otherwise, I don't
another
think.
hypnotist came that wasn't Ravine.
Yeah.
And this was about 3 years later. And I go, oh, I think I'll go to the show and see how it goes. It scared the heck out of me because all of a sudden I knew that hypnotism was really kind of real. So he's saying, count to 10 and all this kind of stuff. And I'm going, no, I'm not going to do that. And I just about walked up on the stage anyway, my
Yeah.
friend said.
Yeah.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I can't imagine that.
I know.
I was in the 5th grade. Alvin decided to move from the ranch. When school started that year, he decided to move from the ranch into town.
Alvin?
Alvin,
And that's
my uncle Alvin. And so we moved in, but it only had 2 bedrooms. And so the girls slept in one room, and Alvin and Beulah slept in the other room. And me and Drexel had to sleep in a bunkhouse that was outside. And you could actually see cracks in the walls and you see outside. And didn't have any heat in there or anything. And we slept there that whole school year, the winter. And I remember that we'd put our clothes in bed with us because of the fact that to keep them warm, you know, warm enough to put on in the morning.
Monticello wasn't that cold.
Yeah, you're right.
How cold would it get?
Well, I remember it being in the 20s. I don't know whether it was any more than that or not, but at least in the 20s, so. And I know that when we'd go in, we'd jump in bed with our clothes on and everything and then take off our clothes after we were under the blankets and leave our clothes in there with us.
It's just so cold. So how many years did you do that? Have to sleep there?
I think maybe just that year, we might have had to sleep there 2 years, but they added on another bedroom and a front room to the house. I think that very next summer. And so then we had a bedroom too. So me and him had one bedroom, the girls had one bedroom. And then of course Alvin and Beulah had the other one. But then the house was kind of oblong, and the kitchen, when you walked in the back door, you walked right into the kitchen. But then if you came down the hall, well, all the bedrooms were off to the right, and the front room and the bathroom was off to the left, and we only had one bathroom, and it didn't have any running water in it.
Oh. So it was like an outhouse, but inside?
No, yeah. Well, no, it was a toilet, but we had a bucket there that when you'd go to the bathroom, you'd pour the bucket of water in the toilet, and you'd go fill it up. And half the time, somebody would forget to fill it, and you'd be in there in a hurry, and then you'd go, oh, now what am I gonna do?
Instead of saying, hey, bring me some toilet paper, it was like, hey, can you come get the bucket? Go
Fill it with water.
How far did you have to go to fill it with water?
Oh, just
the
outside.
kitchen? Oh,
Yeah,
do you have your
just
well?
not very far from the house.
Was it a well or like a?
Yeah, it was a windmill that produced water, yeah.
And so what was like your daily activity? Take us through a day in the life of you at that age when you lived with them. What were your chores? What would you go do?
Boy.
What did you get in trouble for doing? What were you not supposed to do that you did get in?
Let's see.
Did got caught?
We were milking 5 cows because we were milking 5 cows out at the ranch too. And so, you know, 1 week Drexel would milk 3, and then the next week I'd milk 3. And on your odd week, you got to milk 2, you know. But we'd get up in the morning, come in, we'd have to go milk the cows. And by the time we'd get the cows milked, then we had to separate the milk. And then we could have, breakfast would be ready. Then we'd go in and eat breakfast, and then it'd be time to leave for school. And the one thing I always hated was I didn't want to smell like a cow going to school. And so I was so careful out milking. If the cow got too close to me, I tried to back up. It was just funny because I didn't like to go smelling like a cow, you know. And yet we only took a bath every Friday night.
Oh yeah, and how did that go?
Oh, that was terrible. Because we had a big tub that they'd have in the kitchen, because there wasn't such a thing as showers in those days. So we had this big tub that they would, and the girls would always get to bathe first, and then me and Drexel would have to bathe after they did. And we'd just soap down in that tub, and then Aunt Beulah would pour a bucket of water over the top of you, and that's how you rinsed off.
Oh, awful.
And that was
You were the last one to bathe, right?
Yeah, I was always the last.
So
Yeah.
Aunt Beulah.
Well, no,
husband,
they always bathed a different day than the kids.
Wait a minute, you had a bucket? You're so lucky.
Yeah.
We had a thimble. We had to bathe in a thimble.
Oh boy.
So you had a bucket and you'd fill up the bathtub?
Well, it was a round tub, you know, like you've seen the tubs that are about a foot high or maybe a little higher, and not more than 2 or 3 feet around.
Yeah.
And we'd just stand in that. And we'd sit in it when we'd first get in it, because then we'd soap our whole body down. And like I said, I was so nervous about smelling like a cow. I used to scrub my arms so hard and my hands.
I love that. And that water was probably black by the time you got
Oh, it was. It was dirty. But the thing was, it was just getting all the soap on you, and then it was so nice when Aunt Beulah would dump lukewarm water over the top of you, you know, and actually really rinse you off pretty good.
I bet in the winter time that was miserable to have to get in there.
Well, you had to do it in the kitchen because that was the only heat in the whole house too.
And you had your hot wood burning stove.
Yeah.
Is that what you
Yeah, just a wood burning stove, and that's what she cooked on and everything. We did have electricity there, but they didn't have electric stove in those days.
So what was your typical breakfast like? Lunch and dinner?
Well, Aunt Beulah did a good job at cooking, I thought. You know, so usually in the morning we'd have bacon and eggs.
And warm milk? Would you eat drink the fresh milk?
Well, mostly it was, you know, it had been in the fridge overnight. So, but I used to drink the milk out while I was milking the cow. I'd squirt it right in my mouth and drink it.
Sounds so funny.
Because we hadn't eaten breakfast and we had the milk before we could have breakfast.
That is utterly disgusting.
Uncle Joe. So what time would you have to get up to go and milk?
We'd have to be up by 6 o'clock to be able to milk and everything, and then it was only 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 blocks to school. We had to walk, you know, about 4 blocks,
Not
4 or 5.
2 miles in the snow
Oh,
up to your waist
you're right.
back and forth.
That's a little
You know, well, when we were out at the ranch and had to go to school, we had to walk 5 miles to school, and it was uphill to school. And when you'd get out of school, the snow would blow so much that you had to walk uphill going back home.
I don't know. That's probably true though, right?
Well, it's a good thing they had school buses even back then.
Oh really? You guys, I thought you took your horse.
Yeah, I wished we did.
You'd rather have the school bus?
Well, no, I'd rather have my horse if I could have.
So what about the pond? Didn't you say there was a pond that you guys would go?
Oh yeah,
and
just you
for
know,
fun?
There's more than one. It seemed like every place that water collected, they would put a little dam up, you know, so that, and they called them reservoirs. And all summer long, that's the only place we ever bathed, you know.
And would you go out? Did you hang up rope swings and
Oh yeah,
singing?
everything. Yeah, we did all kinds of stuff. Yeah, and you know the ranch closest to us, my Uncle D lived with his family, and he had 2 girls and 4 boys. So
you were
well, I
always
think
had-
when they lived next door to us, there was only Grant and DeRoyce, and well, no, Arden had to be born by then too, so maybe 3 boys.
Were they part of the polygamous family?
No, none of us.
No.
None of the, even though Mom grew up in a polygamous family, none of her brothers or sisters or any of us were ever, on both sides of the family, none of them were polygamous.
So how many wives did your grandpa have?
My grandpa had 2 wives, and they were sisters.
Oh, that seems like that happened a lot.
Yeah.
Back then.
So,
Yeah, very interesting, isn't it, Yuri?
yeah.
Very different. So, do you remember the one time you got in trouble for doing something you weren't supposed to do?
Oh boy, yeah.
Ask the right question.
You know, we used to think we were cowboys, and you know, we grew up thinking we were cowboys. In fact, we'd try to lasso posts, we'd try to lasso anything that moved, and one of the funnest things to try to catch was pigs.
Aww.
And so, because you can't just lasso them around the head, because as soon as you do, the way their snout is and everything, the rope just pulls
slide
off.
right out.
If you don't get it around their body, you don't catch them, you know, but anyway, so we were catching them, and then we were riding them like you do in a rodeo, and we thought that was so much fun because we couldn't stay on very long because the pig, you know, there's no hair, there's nothing to hold on.
And
So
they were really round.
yeah, they were round like a barrel, even though my bow legs
That's why
could
they're
fit them. But anyway,
You're doing the splits on them.
when Alvin came home and seen us riding them pigs, boy, he came out and he never spanked us, never once. But he'd use the side of his boot and kick us right in the butt with the side of his boot. And boy, he lifted me about 3 feet off the ground with his boot that day, because he said if you sweated a pig, it would die, because they don't have any sweat glands, I guess. I don't know. But anyway.
And so, did you know before that you weren't supposed to do that?
Well, we knew that it probably, yeah, we kind of knew that we probably shouldn't have been trying to ride the pigs, but it was still fun while we were doing it. But nobody rode it very far, 10 feet at the most.
Pretty funny. And did you ever try? Did they ever have where they would like grease the pigs down and you had to catch them at
Oh,
the
you know
fairs
something?
or
No,
anything?
you know what was really fun was at rodeos. Well, they had to think of things, you know. For the littlest kids, they'd turn chickens loose in the arena, and then the kids would go out there and try to catch them, and if they caught one, then it was their chicken, you know.
Oh, how fun!
And so, but that was usually kids
That's
that
a good
hadn't been
prize.
going to school yet. I can't remember how old they were, but, and then us kids that were in grade school still, they used to grease a pig and to do the same thing. And boy, if you ever tried to hold on, even though these pigs weren't very big, I'm not kidding you, you'd grab him and try to hold on to his foot, and it'd just slip right out of your hand because he was greased. The only way you could really catch him was to put your arms clear around him and then halfway lay on him.
So did you ever catch one and get?
No, I never caught one,
They were
but
too hard.
some of my cousins did.
So were your parents really after? Okay, you guys make sure you get that pig or that chicken, because I imagine that was a pretty big prize.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of fun. And I remember that they used to have a contest between Utes and Navajos, and they'd have a sack of money that they'd bury in the ground just loosely, but just have the top part of the bag sticking out of the ground, and the Utes would be on one side and the Navajos on the other side, and then they'd tell them, okay, go, and they'd race their horses towards that bag and try to swing down and grab it and then run over their goal line with it. And oh, that used to be so fun to watch because
Wow, that's so cool. Really?
Yeah, yeah.
And Navajos divided up, and they like to come and.
Oh, they would do, yeah. I remember, you know, they quit doing it after 2 or 3 years, and I would imagine it was just because I guess they thought it was racist or something. I don't know.
Sounds a little dangerous too.
No, you should have seen them. Some of them would ride it underneath their bellies of their horse almost.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow. And no one ever got trampled that you saw.
No, but I seen horses fall over before, and the guy fall off to the side and then jump back on his horse and race. And they'd make a blockade so the guy that had the money couldn't get past them, and they'd grab it from him and go the other way. And
That's like football.
yeah,
The first.
except for with a money bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were pretty excited to get that money back
Yeah.
too, I guess.
And I don't even know how much was in it or anything, or if real money was really in the bag, but it was fun to watch anyway.
How long did it usually last for?
Well, usually 20 minutes or so.
Really?
Yeah.
So was it a long ways they'd have to take it?
Not really. About half the racetrack or something.
But they were fighting pretty good.
Yeah.
So how long did you stay there in Monticello?
Well, when I was going to school and living with Uncle Alvin, it was about
'Cause you were like 10.
You know, I can't remember. I think I went when I was in the 3rd grade and came back when I was in the 10th. I think.
Oh.
It's hard for me to remember for sure.
So you stayed there that
Yeah.
whole time?
Yep.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, we definitely have more stories, I think, that I'm
So-
very excited to hear about.
Okay.
Great. Signing off. Till next time. Say adios, Grandpa. No.
Adios.
Adios.
Came over about 10 o'clock in the morning one day, and he said, tomorrow the revolution's going to start. And he said, it's going to start by us killing everybody that lives in Pacheco and everybody that lives in, like, Juarez or whatever that next town is.
Pancho Villa told your
Yeah,
grandpa
told
that?
my grandpa that.
And expected him to help him?
He went around and told all the Mormons.
Your grandpa?
And that night, all of the Mormons left, and they came, and some of them just went north until some of the killing was over with and all that. Then they went back to their homes. But the majority of them came to Blanding, Utah,
Oh.
and
that's
a
lovely.
bigger percentage of them went over to Sugar City, or I can't remember what that city is that's down there by Cedar City. But anyway, some of them came there, and when they did, it actually saved their lives, you know, because he started the revolution, and after that, just about every white person that stayed down there in them 2 communities that were 95% white, any of them that stayed got killed.
Got killed. And so, so Pancho Villas told your grandpa so that your grandpa told all the Mormons? Or
Yep,
did Pancho Villas go
no,
tell all the
no,
Mormons?
he
That's
told
why he did it?
He told all of the Mormons, and they left that night. By the next morning, they were gone.
I think I would too.
And,
That's
then,
crazy.
when he was in Blanding, he became the sheriff in Blanding. Our grandpa did. And the only Indian war in Utah was with God, what's his name?
Sitting Bull?
No. Posey. Posey, the Indian chief Posey.
I don't know that much about
And they declared war with him, and he was gonna kill all the white men in San Juan County, you know. And he was organizing all the Navajos to go against them, you know, and stuff like that. And they let a posse out, and my grandpa was in this posse, but he wasn't sheriff at the time. But he went with this posse, and they went out, and they actually shot him and wounded him.
The Indians did?
No, they shot
Their
Posey. They shot the chief and wounded him.
Oh,
And
okay.
so they rounded up all of the Indians that they could get. They were Mormons, so they weren't gonna bloodthirsty kill all the Indians, even though, you know. So they brought them in and put them in a stockade in Blanding, in the town. It was called Grace in them days, not Blanding.
Oh.
But anyway, so they put them in the stockade. Then they started thinking, and they said they sent some trackers out and some different people out to try to find Posey, you know. And they knew that he was wounded. They knew they had hit him, you know, and that he was hit. So they thought, oh, we know what we'll do. So they let his squaw go with a blanket and some food.
Oh, and they followed her?
And then they followed her. And when she got to him, well, he was already dead.
Oh.
So.
Did he go off on his own?
He went and hid in some caves, and that's where they found him dead. So they buried him. And then after they buried him, probably about 10 years later, the newspaper and the government itself wanted the verification that he was dead. So they were going to go out and dig him up, you know. So the Indians went out and dug him up and put him somewhere else.
So that we could.
And then my Uncle D, who is, well, he just passed away about 5 or 6 years ago. But he went with these Indians to rebury Posey, so he was the only white man that knew where the new grave was, and he knew where it was. So when he got sick, I tried to get him to tell me where it was. And,
You did?
Yeah, I talked to him about it, and he said, no, he said, the place where they think he's buried and where they celebrate or they take people and say this is where he's buried, well, he's not really buried there, it's another Indian.
Oh.
And so, but anyway, so I have a little bit of history and all that with
Yeah,
my
you
family.
do. That's really interesting.
So,
why were they so interested in Posey?
well, he was the Indian chief that declared war on the government and started killing white people down there. And they were massacring them, and
So they wanted to make sure they got
that's
him.
when they sent out that big posse that one time when they knew he was in a certain area. They knew he was in a certain area camped, and so they raided the camp and shot up all of the Indians and everything, and that's when they knew they wounded him,
What did they do with the rest of the Indians that
They brought
put
him
in there?
into that stockade and put him in the stockade.
After this?
But then after they knew Posey was dead and that, well then they put him on what's now the Navajo reservation, and then they and had an Indian agent that was supposed to be taking care of him, or whatever. But Joey Bishop, who was Posey's son,
Excuse me.
he, when I was 10, he come riding by in a Model T Ford, and so I actually seen him, and so that was a part of history that I actually seen, But he was Posey's son, and I don't know how old he was when I was 10, but he was probably in his 40s or 50s, But he was Posey's son, and he was still alive. And of course, by then they'd started to change the policies, and were treating the Indians better in reservations, And then now they treat them too good.
Except too good is too bad because we end up making.
Yeah.
1, 2.
You've had what?
I've had that gorilla right there since 1973.
Which one? That looks 1973.
Yeah.
What the?
He used to hang in my camper right up over the window where the curtains go, over the front of your camper. I had him up in that window, and I'd have people say, "Oh, I seen your gorilla the other day." Not that he seen my truck and camper. He seen the gorilla,
So where did you get it from, and why? What?
Kim and Amy used to sell animals like this. In the summer especially, they'd get a blanket and go over in front of Kmart and put a blanket out and sell stuffed animals.
Their own stuffed animals?
Well,
they're done
I gotta
with?
tell you how we'd get the stuffed animals. Me and my best friend at that time, all of the kids around us worked at Lagoon. So we'd go to Lagoon and they'd have them games where you could win stuffed animals.
Oh, yeah.
We'd play them for hours, but we couldn't win nothing. But after that first year, we'd go up there. We could play that game for a quarter and win like that stuffed animal,
I was like that with the dime toss. I could throw dimes.
Well, and we'd have all these stuffed animals that we'd win in one day, and so my girls had like 100 stuffed animals.
So how old were you when you went and did that? Played all those games?
When we played the games, it was before I ever got married.
Yeah. So how old? So you kept him all those.
Back to play the games when the kids were there.
Okay.
Well, see, then I didn't know anybody there, and they'd only let you win 2 stuffed animals, the people that run the regular game, but you just wait till they go on break and then you could get 2 more. We'd always leave with at least 10 or maybe 15 animals just at one night of going to Lagoon.
So when you were young and practicing, you didn't have to pay because your friends
No,
worked there.
because
So
there were
that's how
friends
you
there.
got good
And
at
so,
it. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
we didn't have to pay. And we just played the game for the fun of it. But we got so good at them 2 games that we could just...
Your girls must have thought you were just amazing. You'd show up there with them and you'd be hitting everything.
You know, well, of course, they were both so young then.
Oh,
It was like when
I didn't know.
Amy was maybe 4 or 5 and Kim was 6 or 7, you know. And, yeah.
And then they'd sell their...
And they'd sell them for like $10 a piece or $5 a piece, you know.
Yeah? And what'd they do with that money?
Well,
Is there anything-
They used to just put it in their bank account, you know.
Good daddy. Way to
Yeah.
save them. I never... It's another one I'd never heard of before.
Yeah, that, you know, me and Ty would go up there to Lagoon.
Ty.
And we'd walk over to the games the very first thing. We'd play the one game, and then he would give me the animals while he went to the second game, because he wouldn't have any animals with him, win 2 more deals, come back, I'd hand him all the animals, I'd go play the game. So then we'd walk to our car right then, and we'd have 8 animals, you know, just right in the first 45 minutes of being there.
You're a finagler even back when you were a little kid. You learned how to do
Well,
this.
I wasn't so little then, but yeah. So anyway, after that, you know, well, we would just at first, I don't know how we got started. I can't remember that, you know. I can't remember.
Just going to Lagoon and it was
Well,
fun. Maybe and your
Yeah,
friends were there and
well,
said, hey, come on.
Well, I think the first time I ever took the girls to the Lagoon and won them a stuffed animal with no trouble at all, they were going, "Guy, isn't Dad lucky?" You know,
okay.
Had nothing to do with luck.
And you saw how excited they were when you were
Yeah.
able to give them a stuffed animal,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
That's really fun. Remember that?
yeah. This is what he sent his mom
I
when he
didn't
was
know
on
if-
his mission.
Remember if Neil or Brad had said
Yeah,
that?
no, that's Neil.
Okay.
And then the horse is from Doug and Michelle.
Right.
You know, it was Michelle's horse, I think. And then the totem pole, I actually got it from Willa Keene. And her husband had a trading post down right outside of Gallup, New Mexico. And so, and when they closed that trading post, she moved right next to my sister in Cortez, Colorado. So, and I told her if she ever got rid of that I'd like it, you know. And one day she called me, and boy, I'll tell you, the day she called me, I was at work, and by that night, I drove to Cortez, Colorado. I wasn't taking any chances of her
Like
changing
12
her
hours,
mind.
wasn't it?
Well, between the time she called me and by the time I got there, but yeah, and I stuck it in I had a Toyota then, so I stuck it in the passenger side, and it still stuck out of the trunk. I had to tie the trunk down and put a blanket around the totem pole and tie my trunk down, and it still was sticking out about 2 or 3 feet. And I brought it back to Salt Lake right then.
And what is it from? Tell us again, since now I'm recording the story. Hopefully
Well,
stuff's in the way.
Velma Keene.
But this was from, go back
Oh.
to where why it was such a big
She
deal.
had a piece of paper tied on the back of it, and it still might be there, I'm not sure. And it said that this particular totem pole was in the World's Fair in Seattle in 1936. So all we have to do to verify that is find out if the World's Fair was in Seattle in 1936. And then the second thing we have to do, it was down near the bottom, Brent.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Darn.
And it might be on the very bottom, so.
Yeah. Let's
When
see you
we
lift
move
it up
it.
and I'll look.
Yeah, no, when we move it for putting the stove in and that. I like Brent's idea. If we get rid
And offered you 1,000 or 2,000 for the totem pole.
yeah.
Who was
And I
it?
just thought, if it's worth that to them, it's worth it to me to keep it.
And how much did you pay for it again?
300.
$300. There
Yeah.
it goes finagling again, finagling Grandpa.
Yeah.
1936 Seattle
Boy, you're
World
getting
Fair.
that all down, huh, Brent?
Okay.
Right now?
Okay, Grandpa has some news, guys.
Hey, Bailey, guess
pregnant.
what? I'm at 399 different birds in Utah. One to go to get to 400. Isn't that neat?
And what's the name of the bird you gotta go out and
I'm
get?
gonna go see a Lawrence goldfinch,
So where's it supposed to be?
St. George.
Oh, it is supposed to be in St. George. All right. So when are you planning on going to see it?
In about 10 years.
What do you have going on tomorrow?
Eye surgery for cataracts.
Cataract, you ought to know.
I thought that was a canyon on the Colorado River.
Yeah, cataract canyon.
Waldo, where's Damon?
Hello, Harper.
Happy birthday, Brent.
Oh, it's Brent. Turn it on.
No, I'm keeping it. That's great. I'm keeping it.
Interesting.
Anytime we ever made a trip with my mom, you know, Mira Laverne, she was always saying, hey, the trip will be a lot shorter if we sing songs, you know, so we'd sing different songs like that all the time. And they were songs she knew from her grandpa. I mean, from her dad, you know.
Right,
I mean,
right.
And so, and her dad used to sing all the time. In fact, I think we even have a recording someplace
Really?
of him singing a few songs, you know.
Oh, I'd love to
And,
see that, but I
yeah.
know I've never seen that before
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
But-
That's a really neat song that you sing. That was
Yeah.
a lot to remember. My goodness.
And that
Good
other
for you.
song that we used to sing all the time, I think, was "Teach Me Tonight," and it was something about. Okay, let's see. I don't know how it started. Maybe if I sing just a couple of things I remember, I'll remember how it started. It was like. The sky is a blackboard high above you, and if a shooting star goes by, I'll read that star to write I love you 1,000 times across the sky. One thing isn't very clear, my love. Should the teacher stand so near, my love? Graduation's almost here, my love. Teach me tonight. Starting with the ABC of it, right down to the XYZ of it. Help me find the mystery of it. Teach me tonight. Something,
Interesting.
you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
It's fun to hear those older songs. Wow. Anything else you want to add to it, or any? Can you think of anything that you something that you didn't tell Tanya in one of the videos she did?
I don't know what we were talking about, so.
I'm sure you told her about the lamb or sure you told her about that. That was one of the big ones that you talked about a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, that's because, when I was little, we used to have bummer lambs all the time, and they were more like other people's dogs and cats, because we'd teach them tricks just like you do dogs. And we could get them to roll over. We could get them to come up and kneel down and stuff like that. And so when I got this little lamb up in Wyoming, well, I said to Barbara right away, hey, let's teach it to ride in the basket of our bicycles, because it'd try to run behind us when we was riding our bikes, but it couldn't keep up, And so we'd put it in the basket of her bicycle, and it'd stay in that basket, lay down in that basket while we'd go riding and stuff like that.
Wow.
And then when we decided to move back to Salt Lake, well, we didn't know what to do with the lamb, so we gave it back to Edwin, the same guy that had gave it to us. That was Nelson's brother. And then it was either a year and a half or 2 years later, we went back to Wyoming, and we wanted to see Bambi. That was the name of this lamb, Bambi.
Oh, cute.
And we wanted to see it, and he said, well, good luck. He said, it's out in one of the herds, I don't know which one. And at that time, he had pretty close to 3,000 or 4,000 head of sheep. And so we went over the side of the hill, and we could see about 500 sheep down in this valley. And before, when we used to feed Bambi when she was little and that, we'd call her name, and then I would whistle. And then we had this can that had like little rabbit pellets in it and we would shake that can, and she'd come running up to us. So we'd walk out on the edge of that hill, and we yell, Bambi, Bambi, Bruce and Barbara were both yelling. And I take and start shaking the can and whistling, and all of a sudden here's a sheep out in the middle of all this herd of sheep, puts her head up in the air, and all of a sudden starts running towards us. And she's coming running towards her. 2 little lambs are following her.
Oh my gosh.
She had 2 little lambs. And she ran right up to us and she started eating out of the can first, and then she let us pet her, and we'd always do some of the same things with her. And she was just so friendly and everything, and stood around I remember that Barbara reached over to one of the little lambs and was petting it, and it wasn't even trying to run away. And we just thought it was such a big deal, because then, of course that was the last time we ever seen her, because we never went back again. But she remembered us from all that time, and she even had 2 little lambs, so we were pretty happy about that.
Yeah, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an awesome story. I never get tired of hearing that one.
Yeah. Starting with the ABC of it, right down to the XYZ of it. Help me find the mystery of it. Teach me tonight. Something,
interesting. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
It's fun to hear those older songs. Wow. Anything else you want to add to it, or can you think of anything that you something that you didn't tell Tanya in one of the videos she did?
I don't know what we were talking about, so.
I'm sure you told her about the lamb or sure you told her about that. That was one of the big ones that you talked about a lot.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's because, when I was little, we used to have bummer lambs all the time, and they were more like other people's dogs than cats, because we'd teach them tricks just like you do dogs, and we could get them to roll over, we
Really?
could get them to come up and kneel down and stuff
Wow.
like that. And so when I got this little lamb up in Wyoming, well, I said to Barbara right away, hey, let's teach it to ride in the basket of our bicycles, because it'd try to run behind us when we was riding our bikes, but it couldn't keep up, And so we'd put it in the basket of her bicycle, and it'd stay in that basket, lay down in that basket while we were riding and stuff like that.
Wow.
And then when we decided to move back to Salt Lake, well, we didn't know what to do with the lamb, so we gave it back to Edwin, the same guy that had gave it to us. That was Nelson's brother. And then it was either a year and a half or 2 years later, we went back to Wyoming, and we wanted to see Bambi. That was the name of this lamb, Bambi.
Oh, cute.
And we wanted to see it, and he said, well, good luck. He said, it's out in one of the herds, I don't know which one. And he had, at that time, he had pretty close to 3,000 or 4,000 head of sheep. And so we went over the side of the hill, and we could see about 500 sheep down in this valley. And before, when we used to feed Bambi when she was little and that, we'd call her name, and then I would whistle. And then we had this can that had like little rabbit pellets in it and that, and we would shake that can, and she'd come running up to us. So we'd walk out on the edge of that hill, and we yell, Bambi, Bambi, Bruce and Barbara were both yelling. And I take and start shaking the can and whistling, and all of a sudden here's a sheep out in the middle of all this herd of sheep, puts her head up in the air, and all of a sudden starts running towards us. And she's coming running towards her. 2 little lambs are following her.
Oh my gosh.
She had 2 little lambs. And she ran right up to us and she started eating out of the can first, and then she let us pet her, and we'd always do some of the same things with her. And she was just so friendly and everything, and stood around, and I remember that Barbara reached over to one of the little lambs and was petting it, and it wasn't even trying to run away. And we just thought it was such a big deal, because then, of course that was the last time we ever seen her, because we never went back again. But she remembered us from all that time, and she even had 2 little lambs, so we were pretty happy.
Okay.
I just thought I'd tell you about when my mother sent me to go to my Uncle Alvin's in Monticello, Utah. It was during the Depression, the war years, and she just couldn't afford to keep me or my sister because she wasn't making very much money. And so she sent me to live with my Uncle Alvin, and she sent my sister to live with my Aunt Dot in California. But this is a certificate that I got from the 6th grade, and it says, Pat Black graduated with honors and can go to junior high school. And I just thought it was interesting. If any of you tried to find a history of me living in Monticello, you'd have to look under Pat Black, because they didn't require any identification to go to school or anything. And since I was a kid living with my Uncle Alvin Black, they just assumed that I was Pat Black, not Pat Jividen. And so we thought that would be interesting to know.
Yep, that's awesome.